You are watching the National News Desk, America's News Now.
I'm sure there's a lot of tips coming in through Crime Stoppers, helping us identify the suspect.
On day 3 of the manhunt for the UnitedHealthcare CEO killer, what we're learning about the whereabouts of the suspected gunman and why security experts say they're baffled by the shocking crime. TikTok, the countdown for the end of the popular social media app in the United States begins again. What the company has to do now to survive a total ban. Possibly another foot or two of snow in the Northeast forecast this weekend. Why forecasters believe this might be the end of the winter season before it officially began. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Tonight, police believe the suspect in the killing of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson has left New York City. This as a manhunt to find him now wraps its 3rd day. Investigators have so far recovered DNA evidence from items found at the scene and have turned it over to a lab for testing, but they have not released the name of the suspect, only the pictures they say they believe is a person of interest in the case. Tonight, still more questions and answers and confusion over how this could have happened in the first place. Thompson's former bodyguard speaking to CNN today, saying it was baffling that he didn't have anyone protecting him at the time.
It is highly unusual for the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation not to have people around him.
In the wake of the brazen attack, UnitedHealthcare is boosting security both to their Minnesota-based headquarters and to high-threat executives. Meantime, tonight, more about the man behind the Northern California elementary school shooting that left 2 kids seriously injured. The Butte County Sheriff has identified the gunman as 56-year-old Glenn Litton. They say he shot 6-year-old Roman Mendez and 5-year-old Elias Wolford before he then turned the gun on himself. Investigators found something Litton wrote about, imposing countermeasures in response to what he called America's involvement in Palestinian genocide. Police also revealing Litton was a homeless man who had a lengthy history of mental health issues.
And it appears that he pulled information from various sources, and it all came together in his mind to form a reality that perhaps his thoughts are different than ours, of course.
The gunman pretended to enroll in a fake grandson to gain access to the Feather River Adventist School after having been released from jail just 2 days prior. County officials say Litton had been in and out of prison since he was a juvenile with a lengthy criminal record. The jury in the deadly New York subway chokehold trial will return on Monday morning to deliberate the 2nd count against Daniel Penny on negligent homicide. This after the judge allowed the prosecution's dismissal of count 1 of manslaughter against Penny because the jury could not come to a unanimous verdict. Jurors have been going over evidence in the case for 4 days now. Penny is accused of putting Jordan Neely, a homeless man, in a fatal chokehold on a Manhattan subway in May of 2023. His defense team says he was acting in self-defense because Neely was being erratic and threatening passengers at the time. The prosecution argues Penny went too far when using that chokehold restraint. The upcoming TikTok ban in the United States can proceed if a new American owner is not in place by the middle of next month. The federal appeals court unanimously upheld a law signed by President Joe Biden in April requiring the Chinese-based ByteDance to divest its ownership of the social media app. More than 170 million Americans are on TikTok, and ByteDance argued the law violates their First Amendment rights, giving a voice to those people, while the court ruled the federal government was acting to support the First Amendment of American citizens by protecting their privacy and data from unlawful surveillance. China denies it uses the app to spy on the U.S. ByteDance will likely appeal to the Supreme Court, but it is unclear if the High Court will take up the case. Firefighters in Maryland are battling a huge brush fire at a Baltimore wood waste collection yard. That's according to city fire officials. The fire started yesterday and has closed some roads, schools, and rail service. Officials say it's contained, but strong winds are making it very difficult to put the flames out.
Challenges are that it's a wind-driven fire. It's a very deep-seated fire. We're very limited in access, so our tactics have to somewhat change.
They're still trying to determine what caused that fire. And several people were injured in a school bus crash today in Jefferson County, Alabama. The bus carrying 3 special needs kids, as well as a school aide, drove into an embankment after colliding with a pickup truck on the way to school this morning. The 3 children were sent to the hospital for precautionary reasons, but did not appear to suffer injuries in the crash. The driver and staff member both were treated for minor injuries on site, while the driver of the truck has been hospitalized in serious condition. The other passenger in the truck also taken to the hospital, but suffered less serious injuries. No word on what led up to the accident. President-elect Donald Trump stands behind his pick for defense secretary. In a Truth Social post today, Trump says support for Pete Hegseth is, quote, strong and deep, much more so than the fake news would have you believe, he says. The former Fox News host and veteran faces questions about sexual assault allegations and problematic drinking. He says he's a different person than he was years ago and said he will fight for every vote.
We're going to earn those votes. We're fighting all the way through the tape. We're grateful to have the president's support because his vision for this Department of Defense is to bring it back to its core capacity.
Hegseth denies ever having a drinking problem and says the allegation against him was investigated and no charges were filed. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance meeting with first responders in North Carolina today to check on recovery efforts from Hurricane Helene. He was joined by North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis and West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito as they toured the western side of the state that was just devastated by Helene 10 weeks ago. The state estimates that Helene caused at least $53 billion in damage and killed more than 100 people. Vance says the Trump administration will help out residents of western North Carolina for as long as it takes.
I know that a lot of people in this neck of the woods feel left behind and forgotten. I just wanted to make them feel that their government leaders actually care about them, because we do.
The last jobs report of the year is out, and it shows the economy added 227,000 jobs in the month of November. The unemployment rate stayed about the same at 4.2%. The National News Desk's Antral Nashar taking a look at what this means for inflation and interest rates as the Federal Reserve gets ready for its next meeting.
November brought a much hoped-for rebound in the labor market after an October strained by hurricanes and a Boeing strike.
This month's report is much more consistent with what we've seen throughout the year, which is a story of continued growth.
The sectors adding the most jobs last month: healthcare, leisure and hospitality, and government.
The labor market is better, and the downside risks appear to be less in the labor market.
This latest jobs report will factor into the Federal Reserve's upcoming decision on whether to cut interest rates and by how much when they kick off their next two-day meeting December 17th. Interest rate traders see about an 87% probability that the Fed will cut its target rate by a quarter point. Consumer and wholesale inflation reports out next week will also play into their decision. Here's what Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee said earlier this week.
The long arc, we've made clear progress in getting inflation down. Over the next year, it feels to me like rates come down a fair amount from where they are now. But we meet every 6 weeks because the conditions change.
Members of the Fed are very aware that changing economic conditions will soon have a lot to do with the new Trump administration and a Republican-controlled Congress. Now, the Fed is apolitical, so they generally don't weigh in on fiscal policy, but Chair Jerome Powell is saying this.
The U.S. federal budget is on an unsustainable path. The debt is not at an unsustainable level, but the path is unsustainable. We don't need to pay the debt down. We don't need to balance the budget. We just need the economy to grow faster than the debt, and that's not happening. We're running very large budget deficits at a time of full employment and strong growth.
It's hardly a novel idea. Administration after administration has vowed to shrink deficits, including the incoming one. But doing it requires tough and often unpopular decisions like cutting government programs and raising taxes. On Capitol Hill, I'm Antral Nashar reporting.
All right, Audra, thank you. All forms of THC, the psychoactive chemical found in marijuana, could be banned in the state of Texas if Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick gets his way. Patrick says he intends to push a ban through the Senate during the next legislative session, which begins on January 14th. The prospective legislation already getting pushback from shops that sell THC and CBD products legally in the state since 2019, saying a full ban just goes too far.
We need education. It is not life-threatening. I mean, there's not enough studies that I've seen personally or read that see, there are some things for the youth, but if we put an age limit on things, if we childproof things, if we educate our community correctly, things can work.
Delano area schools in Southern California reopened today after being closed most of this week. Schools went on lockdown on Monday morning after convicted murderer Cesar Hernandez escaped custody while headed to court and then remained closed, those schools, until today. Hernandez remains at large, but the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation believes he's no longer in the Delano area. Hernandez has connections in Los Angeles and in Riverside. A Pennsylvania woman who fell into a sinkhole in Unity Township on Monday is dead. Police said crews found the body of 64-year-old Elizabeth Pollard this morning around 30 feet underground, concluding an intensive search that became dangerous at times. A fire official explained that sinkholes often open up near old coal mines. The county coroner said it could take weeks to determine exactly how Pollard died. Coming up, multiple people have reported seeing unidentified flying objects in New Jersey. What was discussed at a classified briefing about it today. Then why hundreds of thousands of pickup trucks are being recalled and what you need to know if you own one of them. And later, the steps firefighters in one state are taking to prepare for new challenges posed by EVs as they grow in popularity. A winter storm watch in effect off the Great Lakes again as heavy snow continues to fall in northwest Pennsylvania and upstate New York. Through this weekend, the National Weather Service says an additional 2 feet of snow could fall in New York east of Lake Ontario and right between Rochester and Syracuse before a melt is then expected on Sunday. The National Weather Service says a warming trend is expected next week, so that's good news. That will bring above normal temperatures across the vast majority of the country. Also, the National Weather Service Prediction Center says this heavy winter-like season in the Northeast does not mean the area will have above average winter snowfall in general for the season. A recent seasonal outlook says the eastern half of the United States should expect higher temperatures than normal over the entirety of the winter. An updated outlook will come out on December 19th. Officials say yesterday's tsunami warning for parts of California and Oregon is a reminder to always be prepared. It came after a major earthquake off the coast of Northern California and some aftershocks that followed. That sparked evacuation orders, creating concern and traffic issues. An Oregon official says it's simple to start putting together an emergency kit right now.
You can start by looking in your junk drawer tonight and organizing the flashlight and the batteries and maybe a pair of leather gloves.
Officials also recommend knowing your evacuation route ahead of time. Today, Pentagon officials participating in a classified briefing on Capitol Hill with the House Oversight Committee. The discussion reportedly focusing on the unidentified flying objects flying over military sites and President Trump's golf course. Here's the National News Desk's Kayla Gaskins.
For the past few weeks, residents of New Jersey spotting mysterious objects flying at night.
This is over my house right now. What is that?
Some close to a military installation, others over President Trump's Bedminster Golf Club, raising alarm. The FAA restricting airspace. The FBI now investigating.
Oh my God, here we go. What is that?
Officials admitting they can't say for sure what the flying objects are, some saying they're the size of a small automobile. In a statement, a New Jersey police chief saying their presence appears nefarious in nature. The concerns reportedly being discussed behind closed doors on Capitol Hill Friday in a classified briefing between Pentagon officials and House Oversight Committee members.
Is the truth?
A few weeks ago, lawmakers held a public hearing aimed at advancing transparency around unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs for short.
Why the secrecy if it's really no big deal and there's nothing there? Why hide it from the American people?
Now, the American people have legitimate questions, and I believe it's critical that Congress should help address them. This is about the truth and science and facts.
Following the hearing, the Pentagon saying this.
To date, the department has discovered no verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial beings, activity, or technology.
We could soon be getting more information as to what the U.S. government does and doesn't know regarding UAPs and UFOs. Donald Trump has promised transparency on the subject and on the campaign trail said he will release classified footage of the phenomena. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
The parents of a 14-year-old boy who fell to his death at an amusement park in Orlando have been awarded $310 million by an Orange County judge. A jury has ruled that Austrian manufacturer Funtime was blatantly negligent in failing to prioritize safety over profits in their design. In March of 2022, Tyree Sampson fell 100 feet while riding Icon Park's Orlando Free Fall Tower. The ride has been dismantled, and last year, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed the Tyree Sampson Act, which strengthens safety standards for amusement park rides. Over 300,000 Ram heavy-duty pickup trucks are being recalled because of a defective part. The automaker Stellantis said the anti-lock brake and the electronic stability control and traction control systems might fail because of the hydraulic control unit that could break. This affects the Ram 2500, 3500, 4500, and 5500 model years. 2017 to 2018, Stellantis will contact people who could be affected. Tonight, officials of Hamas and Israel say Gaza peace talks have resumed in Egypt. This after the discussions effectively broke down last month when Qatar accused both sides of not negotiating in good faith. According to the AP, Qatari mediators have returned to the talks. Israeli media reporting the possibility of a deal because of changing conditions in the war on the ground. That could include a partial agreement for the release of some hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners, but it would likely not be a full end to the war. Beginning on Monday, December 16th, raw milk samples nationwide must be shared with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and tested for bird flu. The first outbreak of bird flu in dairy cows was reported back in March, with the latest confirmed raw milk contamination coming late last month. The USDA is also mandating information to be shared by herd owners and private and state laboratories when testing for bird flu. And in your health alert, the impact of eczema. It's a very common skin condition affecting more than 25 million people in the United States. And it doesn't just have a physical impact. Medical reporter Barbara Morse is joining us now with why choosing not to ignore it is so critical.
I was first diagnosed, I think I was 11 or 12.
That was devastating for Scott Hedgepeth, who has always loved being active and outdoors.
Eczema, it itches, it's painful, it's terrible, it sucks, it looks bad.
Often patients are told, well, if you just stop scratching, this goes away. Absolutely not.
Dr. Adam Friedman is the chair of dermatology at George Washington University School of Medicine.
Having eczema, which in part is your armor, your skin barrier, is dysfunctional, meaning water's getting out what you need in your skin.
Aside from the uncontrollable itching and pain.
There is an additional ostracism. There's an additional burden of skin disease because it's visible. You can't see diabetes. You can't see high blood pressure. Skin disease is out there for all to see.
I would try to camouflage it covered up with like long sleeves and stuff.
Not getting the right diagnosis and treatment can lead you down a slippery slope.
Inflammation in the skin can translate to other comorbid or concurrent conditions like asthma, seasonal allergies, nasal polyps. Systemic inflammation over time, not good for anyone. And so controlling the skin disease, I think, is important.
Eczema can't be cured, but it can be treated, usually with topical creams. The most common have steroids, but there are a newer, evolving class of drugs. One recently approved, Zoryve. Scott took part in the clinical trial.
I really enjoyed that cream, and that's kind of when it started slowing down and looking a lot better, itching less.
Allowing Scott, now 18, to live life to the fullest. Dr. Friedman suggests beyond medication, limiting soap use and using mild cleansers and applying moisturizers to damp skin. I'm medical reporter Barbara Morse.
And coming up, D.C. residents claim Amazon is charging them for a delivery service they're not getting. The action the city is taking against the company when we come back. Welcome back. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We are taking the pulse of America.
Firefighters have long trained for car fires, but electric vehicles have brought on new dangers, with lithium-ion batteries burning hotter, faster, and taking a lot more water to put out. That's why firefighters in Portland are stepping up their training and their tools to meet the challenge.
You can see it in videos. Obviously, we can be sent brochures and told different things, but the goal is to actually put it through the paces.
Captain Ryan Walsh says this simulated EV fire gave his team the opportunity to test a new set of blankets specifically designed to stifle the flames faster.
D.C. is suing Amazon for allegedly excluding the 20019 and 20020 zip codes in Ward 7 and 8 from Amazon Prime, but still charging customers for it.
We are paying for a service that Amazon has said that they will provide and has been gaslighting us about providing.
Rachel Kaplan moved from the west to the east side of the Anacostia in 2022 with the same Prime account. A toilet paper order to her old address, same-day delivery. But her east side address took more than a week. In a statement, Amazon said, in the zip codes in question, there have been specific and targeted acts against drivers delivering Amazon packages. We made the deliberate choice to adjust our operations, including delivery routes and times.
Dribbling, shooting, and teamwork. All important basketball skills learned at Oak Hill's Special Olympics basketball camp.
We're playing basketball with a friend.
How does it make you feel?
Happy. Want to go try it somewhere?
Physical education teacher Jason Lewis invited students from Oak Hills, Southwest local schools, Princeton, and Indian Hill to participate in the camp. Oak Hills High School girls and boys basketball players acted as the camp's coaches.
It makes me feel like I'm doing something better than myself, like making someone else's day better than mine.
If your kids are wondering how long they have to send their letters to Santa, well, this is the last weekend to get it done. The letters for the U.S. Post Office's annual Operation Santa program need to be postmarked by Monday. You send the wish list, and the USPS will then scan them, publish them online while redacting personal information. Sometimes letters will come from parents who've fallen on hard times, in which case kind-hearted strangers can adopt those wish lists and bring some extra cheer to them this Christmas. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend.